Hello, my name is Emma and I'm a tour leader. I have a website called I Love Bergen where I publish insightful travel advice for Norway. In this video, I'm going to take you on a virtual drive on the Ryfylke Scenic Road. It's a drive through southwestern Norway that starts at Waterfall near Odda before going to the Røldal Stave Church. After that, we take the national tourist route to Sauda, and this is where the drive will end. From Sauda, it's just a short drive to get to Stavanger. If you're looking for detailed information of each point of interest, you can find links in the description. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this drive. Hello everyone and welcome to the Ryfylke Scenic Road. My name is Emma and I'm going to be your guide for this drive. The drive begins at the Folsom waterfall, which is very close to Odda. The waterfall is 165 metres or 570 feet high, and it is famous for its stone bridge from the mid-19th century. This waterfall became really popular around that time as cruise ships started to dock in Odda, and farmers with their horse carriages would meet all the tourists and bring them to this waterfall. We're going to begin the drive by, of course, driving over this historic stone bridge. The bridge has, of course, been expanded throughout the years as the highway has also grown and cars have been introduced to Norway. To the left-hand side is the kiosk, which is only open in the summer months. Now, I remember the first time I came to see this waterfall was in April, and it was completely frozen over, so if you are coming to visit the Folsom waterfall, make sure you come in the summer months. It's strongest in the spring. Coming up on the right-hand side is Espelandsfossen, or the Espeland waterfall. You can't park and take photos of this waterfall, but you do get a quick glimpse of it on the drive. Let's speed this footage up as we make our way to the first village, and once again I would like to welcome you to this tourist road. This tourist road is somewhere between Bergen and Stavanger, and it is famous for its rugged, rocky mountains. Here we are in Skara, which is a small village with a population of 333 people. We just drove through the town centre, and very soon we are going to be driving through the village, where you'll see some typical Norwegian houses as well as some farmland. Here is the village right about now. So you can see some typical Norwegian houses on either side of us. Anyway, we are now currently driving on the European Highway 13, or the E13, heading south away from Odda. We are currently making our way towards Røldal, which is where we're going to stop to see a stave church. Once we've seen the stave church, we're going to be making our way onto the national tourist route towards Ryfylke. And now we're driving through the very first tunnel for our trip. You can tell this is one of the older tunnels because it has this very bare, rocky interior. Now, a little bit more about the E13. It was actually the very first highway that linked East and West Norway and was open all year round. It was finished in the mid-19th century. Today, it's not the main highway between East and West. Typically, if you want to drive from Bergen to Oslo, for example, you'll take the E16 through Flåm, or perhaps the E7 that goes over the Hardangerfjord National Park. Odda itself is around 2.5 hours from Bergen and 6 hours from Oslo. We're currently driving through a really popular ski area for people from Bergen and perhaps even Stavanger. It's known as Cellular. It is a very, very tiny village. There are no facilities here, but there are lots of cabins for people who like to go skiing. The village is located at an elevation of 600 metres or 2,000 feet above sea level in the Cellular Valley. Dalen literally just means valley in Norwegian. So the population here is 20, but you will notice lots of houses and cabins, for example the ones on our left-hand side, because these are owned by people from different cities who come to the area to go skiing. Coming up on the left-hand side is the Cellular Hotel, which is no longer in operation. There it is on the left. So now we'll just continue our drive. We'll speed this footage up again as we make our way towards one of the detours we're going to be taking on this road, just to get a better look at the rugged beauty that you get in this part of southwestern Norway. Here's another very popular cross-country ski area coming up. You will see the parking area on the right. Now you will notice some snow on top of the mountains as we do continue driving higher and higher. This is not new snow. This was filmed in September, and a lot of this snow was left over from the last winter season. Now on either side of the road, you'll notice these poles. These are used in the winter months to indicate where the road is when the snow begins to build up. So they're a really good indication of just how deep the snow can get here in the winter. So for the first little turn off on this road, we're going to be heading onto Røldalsfjellet. Røldal is the name of a place, and fjell means mountain. Now this road is very popular with hikers and skiers, but it's only open in the summer months. There are so many different places to stop and take beautiful photos along the way. I will show you one of my favorite ones a little bit later in this drive. Now this was actually the old highway. Along the right-hand side you will see the tunnel. They have built a more modern tunnel, which is much quicker and much safer than taking this road. You can probably see just by looking at the road that it is very, very narrow. So you have to always be on the lookout for cars coming in the other direction. The tunnel was just on the right, but here's a photo of just how deep the snow can get. And I'll put up another photo of a postcard from Røldalsfjellet showing what it used to look like. Here it is. And now we're going to start making our way up these hairpin bends. These are very narrow, and I am actually driving very slow, even though I know the footage is sped up to make it look like I'm driving very fast. I always turn into these openings just in case there is a car coming in the other direction. It's just to be a little bit safer. Turning up this one, and you can see how quickly we lose the vegetation and the whole area becomes very, very rocky. A lot of these rocks have just fallen off the cliffs as they've been eroded away. To the right-hand side, you'll see a lake, and if you keep an eye out on the right-hand side, you will see the tunnel briefly opening up. Again, if you do not feel comfortable on this road, or perhaps you do not have a lot of time, you can skip doing this road and just take the tunnel instead. With the tunnel, it's just a few minutes to get to the other end. This part of the drive took us about half an hour. Anyway, I'm going to leave you to have a look at the scenery here, and I'll come back as we get towards the other end of this beautiful scenic road called Røldalsfjellet. I hope you're enjoying this drive over Røldalsfjellet. We're just making our way down the other end, and here is me meeting my first car of the day. So it's not that nerve-wracking when you see a car coming the other direction, especially if you can see the road this far ahead, as you can clearly see I can on this part of the mountain. But also it's good to keep in mind that Norwegian drivers are incredibly skilled when it comes to these roads, and they understand when to pull over and give way, or when to just keep going while you give way. Down to the right-hand side, you will see the Røldal Ski Centre, which is one of the most popular resorts in southwestern Norway. We're making our way down the other side of the mountain now, and very soon I am going to be stopping for photos overlooking the Røldal Ski Centre. You should be able to see it straight ahead. Yes, you can just see some of the cabins here. So we will just continue to make our way down, and very soon we will be back on ground level. Here I am stopping for photos. Hello once again, we've made it back down Røldalsfjellet, and this is the E13 we see in front of us. To the right hand side you will see the tunnel, which is the other end of the tunnel we left to go up and down the mountain. At the moment we're just a few minutes away from Røldal. Now you will shortly see some cabins, the more modern cabins that you see here in Norway with the very dark timber and the grass roofs. Here they are to the right. Now, grass roofs in Norway is very traditional. It's actually an old method of insulation. How they would do it is they would layer different layers of birch bark, and then they put the turf on top. The birch bark, it stops water from leaking through the roof. This was to make the cabins much warmer, but today it's purely done to fit in with the natural scenery around it. We are now coming up to one of the many roadworks I encounter as I drive around Norway in all of these different videos. If you do choose to watch the other videos, you will see there are roadworks everywhere. The reason for this is that there's only really a couple months a year that Norway is able to work on its roads. This is typically in summer, so if you are visiting here in summer and driving, do expect to encounter roadworks just like this. Some of them I remember we met and we'd ask the men working there how long they think they were going to be, and they would just be like, not too long. So you could be waiting 5 minutes or you could be waiting half an hour. It's just how it is. There's no rush. They have to do their work. Now we're going to be driving through the Hoarder Tunnel. It is 475 meters or roughly 1,500 feet long and was built to replace a series of hairpin bends. If you look on Google Maps, you can see it actually goes in a curve or a circle. Here we are just going through it. This is what they were doing the roadworks on, and then we come out to the other side. As we come out to the other side, we will now be in a village called Hoarder. Here's Hoarder to the left. It is a very, very small town, but it's just a few minutes from Røldal, which is the much more famous town. Coming up now, you will see that we're about to go through a tunnel, but it's a little bit different from the normal tunnels because this is a snow tunnel. Here it is. And it's actually built to protect the road from avalanches or rock slides. You will see lots of these tunnels if you take the train between Bergen and Oslo, especially when it's at the top of the mountain. It's purely just to protect the road and keep it open all year round. Here we are in Røldal. Now this is a historic town with a population of about 600 people, and throughout history this has been one of the most important meeting places between East and West Norway. Up until 1809, a market has been held here in Røldal. From the west, merchants would bring fish products, and from the east, they would bring goods like iron and leather. Goods would be exchanged here before the merchants would go back to their respective homes. You'll be able to see the village down to our right-hand side, as well as directly in front of us. It is a really popular place to come today for tourists, especially because of its Stave Church, which is exactly what we're on our way to go and see. You can now very clearly see Røldal down to our right-hand side. Now, attractions in Norway, they're very easy to find because they have these brown signs on the road. You should be able to see it just to the left, and we're turning right down towards the Røldal Stave Church. Now, this church is only open in the summer months, and because we came here in autumn or the fall, it was closed, so we can only take a look at it from the outside. As we're approaching the church, you'll also see a campground. This is a very popular place for caravanners. The reason it's quite popular is not just because of the Stave Church, but because the caravan park sits by the lake, and the lake is very popular with fishing and swimming. Here is the local supermarket on the left-hand side. It is a Coop. You can just see it there to the left, and you can just make out the Stave Church in front of us. So here we are now approaching the Røldal Stave Church. Now the Stave Church was built around the year 1250, though that is contended because the Stave Church is quite unique. It is unique because its building method is completely different than the other 27 Stave churches remaining in Norway. Some historians think it is a pillar church or a predecessor to the Stave Church. Now this Stave Church does look quite different today than it used to, you'll see with the photo. That is because the church is still actively used and it does need to be modernised and expanded, which it has been throughout the years. Some renovations also covered up the history of the church. Now this church is famous as a pilgrimage site in Norway, and the crucifix pictured here is believed to have healing powers when it sweats every midsummer. So the church in the summer months is open as a museum, and you will find staff here being able to provide you with information if you do come here in the summer months. Anyway, that is the Roald Stave Church. Again, if you want more information, it is on my website. We're now going to make our way over towards the Ryfylke Scenic Road, the national tourist road in Ryfylke. Just let me do this very awkward 3-point turn or 5-point turn away from the Stave Church parking. We do have to go back the way we came, so I will rejoin you when we are on the national tourist road. Hello once again. Yes, I just had to fix the GoPro. We were still figuring things out because this was the first day we were doing our drive. But here we are now on the Ryfylke Scenic Road. We just have to readjust the camera, make sure we're getting everything we want into the frame, and then we'll start making our way up the mountain. So the first part of this drive, it does sort of zigzag up to the top of the mountains. If you do keep an eye out on what's now the left-hand side, you will see the Røldal Lake, and you will also get glimpses down to the village. So Refillika, it's a traditional name for the district, and the name roughly translates to people who eat rye, because historically rye was grown here. The name refers to a Germanic tribe that emigrated from southwestern Norway to Pomerania around the year 100 AD. They are one of the only Norwegian tribes to emigrate out of Scandinavia, so they are quite well documented in this area. So you should just be able to see everything down to the left-hand side now. And you can see we're very quickly getting up towards the top of the mountain. To the right is a viewpoint, which we completely missed because we were focusing so much on the narrow road. We didn't realize the viewpoint was right there. But as long as you mark it on your map, you should be able to stop there. And you get these amazing photos down to the village and the lake. But here we are now towards the top of the mountain. You can see that all the vegetation is once again gone. So the oldest settlement here in Ryfylke was around 7,000 years ago, and there are ancient traces of tribes found scattered throughout the area. Here is some more snow. Again, this is not new snow, it's all left over from the last winter. It's just incredible how big these boulders are on the side of the road. It just blows me away every time. Of course, we have to stop for photos. Now, you can see we're not really parking on a real parking place. There are lots of really good places to park along this road. I think we just got excited, and this is the road we were just driving on. So this is one of the photos I took at the photo stop. Continuing the drive, though, we're just going to continue going over. It's kind of like a valley, this part of the drive. The landscape, it's very varied up here, and Ryfylke is often nicknamed Norway in miniature, so it's quite nice to get a summary of Norway's beautiful landscape on one simple drive. So this scenic road, the Ryfylke National Tourist Road, it's actually the third longest tourist road in the country, which is quite impressive. I believe the longest one goes along the coast in central Norway. It passes places like Brønnøysund and Sandnessjøen. I would really like to do that one, but I think it has like 9 ferries, so it can't be a cheap road to do. Just quickly stopping for another photo stop. We stopped for one really quickly to test out one of our cameras. So we will just sit here. I stayed in the car for this one, so I don't have any digital photos that I took. We take a lot of analog photos on our drives. And here we go, continuing once again. So we are roughly above the tree line at the moment. The tree line typically in the southern part of Norway, it's around 1,000 meters, which is about 3,300 feet. But another reason you don't see many trees here is because the area is notoriously windy, so it doesn't really allow for trees to grow, I should say. As we start making our way back down the mountain, you will see lots of dwarf birch trees first before we get back to the birch and the pine trees. The mountains here, they do reach peaks of 1,600 metres or 5,200 feet. As always, there are tons of hiking trails in this area, and the best website to check if you want to find a hiking trail is ut.no. On that website, you can just enter in a place name, a town, whatever, a mountain name, and they'll tell you where a hike is. So there are 2 famous hikes in Ryfylke that typically make the brochures when Norway is being advertised abroad. The first one is Pulpit Rock, which I did mention earlier. This is where Mission Impossible was filmed. And the second one is this rock between other 2 rocks, which I don't think I would ever step out on. It just looks a little bit horrifying. And I would be the one person who makes the news for falling off. So we've just crossed over into the Rogolan County, which is the county where you will find Stavanger. Rogaland's main industry is, of course, the petroleum industry, and if you are visiting Stavanger, I would highly recommend the Oil Museum, or the Petroleum Museum as it's sometimes called. I know it might not sound super interesting at first. We actually went to the Oil Museum when we were in Stavanger for my 30th birthday. It's not really where I expected to spend my birthday, but we did go to Stavanger during the pandemic, and all the museums I wanted to go to were closed. But we really liked it, and I would really recommend it because it does have a very balanced opinion of the oil industry. It's not trying to show you how great oil is and how perfect the industry is. It does talk about the good and the bad. We're coming up to one more photo stop. We're just crossing over a dam, which you can see here. It's also a very popular swimming area. And then there's going to be one more photo stop before we make our way down the mountain. So really, this part of the drive, it's not that long. It's about 20 to 30 minutes we spent up here before you head back down towards sea level. This whole area, it was really exploited in the 19th century for its power plants. There is a lot of natural hydropower here. And in the background now, this is our photo stop, you'll see a statue. And this is for Knut Vesthessel, who owned one of the largest power plants in the area. He also was the one who encouraged the construction of this road. So we have him to thank for this very pretty road. So you can see me off in the distance now taking lots of photos, and I've shown you the photos I'm taking. My husband's checking the car sensor because it kept randomly beeping every time it would get covered with dirt. And that is the last thing you need when trying to navigate these roads down. Now we're going to make our way down the mountain. I will put on some nice music, and once we're getting closer to the old mines, I will come back and talk to you a little bit about the mines. Enjoy the drive down the mountain. I'm back and we are now approaching Olmaniyuvet, which is a canyon located along the Storelva, or the Great River, very close to Sauda. You can see the bridge just above us, which is the beginning of Olmaniyuvet. This is an old zinc mine that was in operation between 1881 and 1899. As I mentioned before, in the 19th century, this area was really exploited for its industry, and lots of mines popped up all throughout southwestern Norway. At the time, this was one of the largest zinc exporters in Norway. It did close down, though, in 1899, and it was pretty much forgotten until the 2000s, when it was decided that the whole area should undergo a massive renovation as part of the tourist road. So thanks to this tourist road, a new museum, cafe, and rest area have been built. All the buildings have been built to look like the mines. However, I should say these are not the original mining buildings. If you are here in summer and you do have some time to enjoy the area, there is actually a mine that you can pay a little bit of money and you can be taken on a tour to go inside the mine. We didn't do that because, to be honest, I am not super interested in going into mines. It's just a personal preference. But I did really like these buildings sticking out of the mountain, like the one you can see sort of in front of us just now. So there is a mining museum here. Very shortly we will see the parking area. It's just coming up on the right. And then you'll see to the left, that's the path that leads you towards the museum. So yeah, this is all the nice big mining area that's all been renovated, and it's a really great rest stop along the National Tourist Road. And with that, we're just a few minutes away from the next major town on our drive, and that town is called Sauda. And Sauda is another place I would really recommend if you have some time to actually stop and enjoy the area. If you are able to split this drive into two, I would actually recommend spending the night in Sauda. Sauda itself is super interesting, and you'll see as we get closer and closer to the town just how much history there is here. It's located on the Sauda Fjord, so we've actually made our way all the way down from 1,000 meters to sea level. So that's quite impressive in that short stretch of drive, just how much the scenery has changed. You will start to see the fjord very soon. You can see that the area is flattening out quite a bit, and there's lots of agriculture built up here. So anyway, just a little bit about Sauda as we're making our way into the village. There will be some information boxes popping up summarizing what I'm talking about, but you can of course listen to me as well. So archaeological excavation in the area around Sauda shows that people have been living here since at least the last ice age. There was a small settlement here, but it wasn't really built up as a town until the 19th century. The reason for this new town is because of mining. The mining industry started in the mountains in Helensbygd, where we just drove through, and that made Sauda an important industrial area because the fjord connects to the ocean, allowing for trade. In 1910, the American company Electric Furnace Company began constructing Europe's, at the time, largest smelting plant in Sauda. The only reason this smelting plant could be built is because of the number of power plants situated close to the smelter. At the time, it was a farming village, so you can imagine all of this industry meant the end of agriculture in Sauda, though as you can see here on the outskirts, you can still find some of the farms. Now, during the Second World War, the Germans built a large aluminium plant here, but this was closed down in 1946. Most of the industrial buildings were closed down or demolished in the 1950s, and the surviving ones today have been preserved, and they are now part of the Ryfylke Museum. Additionally, there's also an area in Sauda called Arbobyen, and this is a community that was built up by the American smelting plant to house their workers. And today Arbobyen is considered to be one of the best preserved North American villages in Norway. I don't know what sort of competition it has. I don't know of any other North American villages in Norway, but I think that does really make Arbobyen quite unique. It's also really cool to walk around because all of the street names have been heavily romanticized. So you have Edvard Grieg Street, Henrik Ibsen Street, and so on. So that's Arbobyen, and in Arbobyen you'll find the Refillika Museum, and they actually have a house that's been preserved, a worker's house, so you can see what it was like to live here when industry was at its peak. That's just a little bit about Sauda. I would say that in recent years the whole town has become much more famous for its scenery, so a lot of people now come here to go hiking rather than visit the industrial museums and so on. So the town's really trying to change its appearance and build itself as a natural tourist destination. We're just on the outskirts of Sauda right now. Here you can see on the left-hand side the smelting plant. This is one of the original ones, just over to the left-hand side. You can't see it from the highway, but over to the right is where this North American village called Arbo Bien is. Arbo, I'm not quite sure what that means, but Bien, B, means city. So the workers' city, I'm sure there are plenty of Norwegians who know what it means. You see, the entrance is just down to the right. Now, there is also an app you can download, the Ryfylke app, and it does have a self-guided walk, so you can actually take yourself on a walk through Arbo Bien and learn about the history of this village. We're just coming into the Sauda town right now. So here we are in the town centre. You can see this is a very, very clear post-war town centre. Often in Norway, if you want to tell if something's post-war or pre-war, you look at what it's built in. Before the war, most of the buildings were built in timber, so you can see to the right-hand side we do have some timber buildings. But after the Second World War, buildings were built in concrete in a very brutalist style. Take a look at the town hall to the left-hand side, for example. It's very simple, it's very brutal, hence brutalist, but it's very practical at the same time. And after the war, Norway didn't have a lot of money, so they just had to build very simple buildings. You can see the town library to the left-hand side. It's a little bit more detailed than some of the other buildings in town. That was Sauda. If you keep an eye out to the left-hand side, that is where the Hardangerfjord is. And now we're going to be making our way towards the last stop on this drive, which is another waterfall. If you do drive around Norway, you will see plenty of waterfalls because that's what this whole area really is famous for. And there are some really special ones, and there are some typical waterfalls. It's just how it is. I will join you as we get closer towards this waterfall. Hello once again, I hope you enjoyed our drive. We're heading towards our last point of interest, which is the Svandalsfossen, or the Svandal Waterfall. I did not stop at this waterfall because at this point we were running so late to get to Stavanger and we had a dinner booking that night. So there's the parking to the left and then you see the waterfall to the right. There's a bridge. There is a tunnel that goes underneath the highway so you can actually walk to the waterfall, and then there's stairs that take you to the top of the waterfall. Here's the beautiful fjord out to the left-hand side, and this is around the time in which we shut the GoPro off, so I really hope you've enjoyed this drive on the Ryfylke Scenic Road, and do check ilovebergen.net for travel advice for all of Norway. Thanks for watching.